you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Almost Immortal Warrior tank build for the Scalebreaker DLC. This has been on my channel for an extremely long time. In fact, the first build I ever made on my YouTube channel. And this is still going very, very strong. It's been really successful across the community as far as completion for content is concerned. And it's a solid tank. Tank being the meaning of the word. This is a very tanky build. He's very, very strong. He can take a lot of punishment. He's not a burden to the healers, so the squishy guys can actually get some heals. And he does have a buff set with him as well. So this is capable of holding aggro, taking damage, not being a burden to your group. And if something goes really, really wrong, he can help everyone. And of course, he protects the group as well. So, first of all, I'm going to go into the stats. I'm going to explain absolutely everything, but we'll get our potions and such on first. Bonuses and buffs and such. So, first of all, we are sitting on 10k max magicka. We don't need a big mag pool because the abilities we're using do not scale off of max magicka, so they don't get stronger. We need high magic recovery, hence why we've got 1.8k recovery, so we can use them more often rather than utilize the magic pool for their strength. It's not how it works on this particular setup. 51k max health, which is enormous. 20k max stam, which is more than enough. And we do actually have 668 stam recovery, which isn't too bad. When our shield is down, we do gain that recovery. When our shield is up, we obviously don't. But because we're so strong, we can take so much damage and we've got so much survivability, we can actually drop our block during certain mechanics to be able to allow that stamina recovery to actually kick in, if you need to. We're also, resistance-wise, because we've just ran out, it's fell off. Our resistance is actually on 31.7 on spell resistance and 30.4k on physical resistance. If we get a minor buff from a healer giving us combat prayer or something, then of course we can hit cap or borderline cap in our physical. Not far off anyway. And our spell resistance will actually hit cap, no problem whatsoever. So we have very good resistances, really high health, decent magicka sustain to spam out our utility abilities, and massive stamina to be able to block and use a couple of extra skills with as well. Now, we are using 64 of our attribute points into max health. You can change this if you want, but honestly, he's really, really strong. You don't need to alter anything at all. He used to have very, very low stamina, and you can still do that with your food, but he's got more than enough now, and the block cost reduction and our sets do cover all of that as well. You can put more into stamina, like I said, if you want, but that is a choice you can make. There's no right or wrong to it, but I'm going to present the build as it is. The food we're using is max health, max stam food. We're using the Atronach Mundustone, and we're a stage 4 vampire. We use vampire abilities actively, so there's no point going stage 3, and this is absolutely fine throughout all content, but I will get to the passives about vampire later. We do have minor Aegis in our arsenal as well, which is part of the sets, but we'll get to that later. The food, however, max health, max stam is obviously what gives us our 51k health, which is enormous, and of course our 20k stam. However, if you choose to, you can use this Frothgar stuff from Orsinium, and what this will do is it will remove your stamina bonus from the food. It will put you down to 14k stamina. It will still keep you at 51k max health, but as you can see, our magic recovery, if we pop a potion, where is it, has now gone up to 2.5k. So if you want to spam abilities that much more, you really, really can. But again, that's a choice for you. Some people are very, very comfortable with a low stam pool. Some people are not. The trade-off is there. It's your choice. But for the purpose of the video, we're going to go flat stats all the way. Now, I'm going to go into the skills in detail. I'm going to explain exactly how they work, how the build is designed, and how it supports it. Everything will be explained. Yes, there are other variations of skills and morphs and all that kind of stuff you can take if you want. There's not one way or no way in this game, but I am going to show you how this one is set up. So, first of all is Igneous Shields. Yes, I know there's Fragmented Shield that has a longer duration on Major Mended. I'm very aware, but we don't need it because we can spam the crap out of this. And this is the stronger shield of the two. This is in Earth and Heart. It's the third ability you unlock. Starts off as Obsidian Shield, morph it into Igneous Shield. Now, this will give you a damage shield of 10k, almost 11k, and this is scaled off of your maximum health, as it says clearly there, ever since it did in the first build video. This scales off of your health. So the larger your health pool, the stronger the shield. Now, we get a 10.9k damage shield, whereas the group gets a 4.3k damage shield. Yes, the group. Your friends, 6 of them, including you, so you and 5 others, will actually get a damage shield. And all you have to do is this. So applying it will give a damage shield, and it will give you Major Mending, increasing your healing done. So any heals that you do personally, any that you cast, are increased. And because our mag recovery is so high, we can actually abuse this and borderline spam it to some extent. We can use it a lot more often than many others. I know lots of people like to use balance, which will actually take your health away and give you magicka, but that particular ability does actually diminish the effectiveness of your own self heals and your igneous shields itself by 50%. So this is deliberately to buff the survivability of your group. I'm not about to half its effectiveness. So this is very, very strong. We don't need a big mag pool. We just need high recovery. Really, really strong. Keep this up all the time. Help your group survive. And of course, when we get to the passives, this is a very, very strong skill to use. Dragon Blood, as in green Dragon Blood actually, in the Draconic Power skill line, third ability to unlock, starts off as Dragon Blood, morph it to green Dragon Blood. This will actually heal you, again, based off of your max health. The amount that you've got missing, you'll get back 37% of it, and it can crit. Now, also, while this is active, because it does act as an actual buff for the duration that it's on, it will give you stam recovery and health recovery, which is small. It only works stam recovery-wise if you're not blocking, and the health recovery is so-so, and we do have it in our potions anyway, so that's not really hugely important, but what is important is this: we get minor vitality. So, our healing received is actually stronger while we have this on. Minor vitality is an 8% increase to healing received for you. So, just for having this ability on, you will get that. Also, bear in mind that this is a heal as well. You don't just cast it to heal, you cast it as a buff. Keep this up all the time. But when you do cast it as a heal, any missing health will be healed up to 37%. But this increases our healing done by 25% if it's active. You'll see on my buff timers at the bottom there's a yellowish buff going away now. It's gone. Now it's back. Lasts for 3 seconds. So what you need to do is you want to Igneous Shields first, Dragon Blood second. Because if you do, that Major Mending will buff it. Instead of 37% of your missing health, it will give you back 45%. Of course, the lower your health actually is overall as a maximum pool, the smaller that percentage is actually going to be in terms of a flat heal. So the more health you have, the more effective this skill is and the less often you have to spam it. Keep this buff up all the time, however. Next up is Pierce Armor. This is in the One Hand and Shield skill line. This was altered in Scalebreaker slightly to make some more sense of the skill, which is really, really helpful. It's really, really cheap, but this actually taunts the enemy. So it will do physical damage, not a lot because we're not spec'd into damage, but it will do damage and it will taunt for 15 seconds. If you've been playing Warcraft a lot, you're probably familiar with aggro counters and such like that, where people can actually over damage or over aggro a target and take it off you. This does not allow you to do that. In this game, a taunt gets you the aggro. So, this means that if we stab something with this, it will stay on us for 15 seconds, and while this is active, the target will be debuffed with Major Fracture and Major Breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 5280 for 15 seconds. It's really, really nice that they finally match those two up, but you do want to make sure that you keep this on the target at all times. Don't let it run out, then reapply it. Reapply it before it runs out, because that small gap between, if you do that, the boss will probably just run off and punch someone in the face, and you don't want to do that. Also bear in mind, Major Breach and Major Fracture is a debuff type. It doesn't stack with other types of exactly the same debuff. Next up is Absorb Missile. This was changed also. This is in the One Hand and Shield skill line. This is the third ability you unlock. Starts off as Defensive Posture. Morph it to Absorb Missile. There are two morphs to this. The other one gives you a block cost reduction and damage income reduction when you're blocking. But this one has been changed quite drastically, actually. This used to only absorb one spell, and if you absorbed it, it would heal you. The damage shield is quite large though. It gives you a 15.8k damage shield, which is based off of your max health. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, it says this ability scales off of your max health, which means the higher your health, the bigger the shield. Now, while the shield persists, you are healed for 9.3k the next time a harmful direct projectile hits you. This effect can occur once per cast. So the cast itself, this damage shield, will protect you until it runs out. Basically, all projectiles now, arrows, magic shots, whatever. Doesn't matter how much damage they do, your damage shield will last its full amount. So if you get hit by 2k, 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 it's not going to take the whole shield off. It's going to take an amount of the shield off and leave what's left. But the first hit will actually heal you. So what you can do is you can get hit and healed, and then cast it again, and get hit and healed, and then cast again, and so on and so forth. Or you can just let it run its duration and keep utilizing the damage shield itself. Of course, if you get hit for 15k in the face, it will take the whole thing off, but now it lasts for multiple hits rather than just one. It's very, very strong indeed, and the fact that they've made this now work for all projectiles, not just magic ones, is really, really nice. Now, this does cost a bit, so you have to make sure that you use this effectively, but it has actually been changed for the better. It did used to last a lot longer, but it was just one damage shield, one hit, and it's gone. Now you can obviously, like I said, use it for the full duration. So that also stacks with Igneous Shields, by the way. So you have Igneous Shields on, and you have that on. If you're getting hit by projectiles, your damage shield's huge to that type of damage, and then when the main one goes off for projectile damage only, the rest is still remaining for whatever's left to be hit with in the face. So they do stack up, but also, Major Mending does buff the heal to 11.3k instead of 9.3. So if you Igneous first, heal second, you can benefit a lot more from it. Next up is Bone Surge, another damage shield, surprise, surprise. This is in the Undaunted skill line, and this was also changed in Scalebreaker. Now, morph this to Bone Surge from Bone Shield. It's a 4th ability to unlock in the Undaunted skill line. This does cost stamina, so you have to be careful. Make sure you heavy attack occasionally inside mechanics. Make sure you don't leave your block down during a heavy attack to you, though. Be careful. But this grants you a damage shield, also based off of your max health. This will give you a 16.3k damage shield for 6 seconds. And if an ally takes a synergy from it, not only will they get major vitality, increasing their healing received for 30% for the 6-second duration, which is massive. So if they take a synergy, their healing is improved. The healers can keep them alive a lot longer. Also, 5 allies, 6 including you, so your shield and then 5 from the synergy, will actually get a damage shield equivalent to 30% of their maximum health as well. This used to be 4 targets at 50%, now it's 6 at 30%. So what have we learned so far? Igneous Shield protects you and 5 others. Bone Shield protects you and 5 others. You've got 2 massive, massive damage shields right there to protect your group. Healers are crying at the moment because apparently healing's really hard. First of all, it's not. It's actually quite good for sustain. Also, the fact that you don't have to spam resto abilities and bubbles all the time means you can add a little bit of class utility in there and start using your main heals from your class lines, which is quite nice. Your resources are better. But at the same time, if they are struggling, protect your group with some tank skills. Not to mention, of course, for yourself, for your own survivability, as well as protecting the group. This is a 10k shield. This is a 16k shield. That's 26k damage shield already. And then you've got a 15k damage shield here. Almost 16k again, which is absolutely insane. So in total, you've got a 16, a 16 almost, and then another 10. So you are sitting on a 42k damage shield, give or take a few points, at any one point in time if you choose to. One's stamina, one's magic, and then you've got the projectile one at the same time. I haven't even got to my health bar yet, and there's 51k health hidden behind it. It's disgusting. Protect your group with these abilities and keep your own health up. Now, the ultimate is, of course, Shield Discipline, another protective bonus to you. This has been buffed also. This got altered by 1 second, and it's already broken as hell. This is your oh shit button. Now, if you are in trouble, you haven't got enough ultimate to use your back bar ultimate, you need some resources back, you haven't got enough stamina to block, and you are really, really in the shit, or if you have to res someone, because that also happens occasionally, this ultimate is so awesome to use. What it will do is this will give you a shield, which will basically block all incoming attacks automatically. You don't have to sit there and do this, you just do this. There's your ultimate. You can run around full speed with your ultimate running, and block all attacks as if you were just standing there holding block like this. Very, very powerful indeed. You can swap skills, you can swap bars, you can res people, you can go running, you can do whatever you want. It will block everything, including big, big heavy attacks from bosses. I think there's one attack in the game that will still knock you back, but that applies to block normally anyway. Now, at the same time, while this is active for a whole 8 seconds, all of your one hand and shield abilities will cost nothing. So, this here, which would cost you 3.5k stamina, spam it. You can use it for free. It doesn't cost you a thing for 8 seconds. You see how it just strips my stamina bar? That won't happen. It costs you nothing. Also, your taunt, your pierce armor. Sure, it's a cheap skill anyway, but if you want to go and taunt everything in the room for 8 seconds and make sure they're all on you because there's an oh shit moment just happened, you can do that. It's free. So this not only gives you resources back in our passives, which we will get to, not only does it give you a block for free that doesn't cost any stamina or anything whatsoever, but your abilities that keep aggro cost nothing the whole duration. This is a massive resource saver, and it's also a life saver at the same time. It's a really good ultimate. I would highly recommend you put this on your front bar just in case. Now the back bar. Mist form, do not laugh. This has been on the build ever since the beginning, and people are finally starting to understand its use in PvE. This is Elusive Mist. It's called Mist form to start with. Morph it to Elusive Mist. This is in the Vampire skill line. Now what this does is when you activate it, you take 75% less damage, and you get Major Expedition as well, so you move faster while it's in this mode. You can't sprint, but it will give you a movement speed. Also, activating this removes and grants immunity to all disabling and immobilizing effects. So if you are rooted at the moment and you apply this, you'll get out of it. If you are supposed to be knocked down by something, you won't be knocked down, unless, listen very carefully, unless it is a major boss. If it's an actual boss, not a mini boss, not an elite or champion type enemy, if it's an actual boss, it will still knock you down. But if it's not, it won't. Also, bear in mind, your magic recovery is gone and your healing is gone while you're inside of this. But it's a really good oh shit button also. If you want to get from one place to another quickly without sprinting, you can use it. Also, if you want to block damage or mitigate damage and you're really low on resources, you don't have enough for an ultimate, this oh shit button of yours will protect you. 75% reduction to damage. Now, some examples as to why that is effective and where. In Vass, for example, Asylum Sanctorium. If you're in there and it's the flame phase on execute and the big fireball is going to land on your head, you can actually misform and you will get barely touched at all. Even though it's fire, you still mitigate 75% damage. It's nuts. And that works on a DPS also, by the way, even as stamina. If you are up against the... what are they called up there? War Priests at the door, where my cursor is. All the way up there, there's 4 War Priests. If you go up against them and they try and heavy attack you, but you've got no juice left, pop this. They won't kill you. They will not knock you down. Also, the axes in Arthurian Archive. I've shown this on live stream a few times. If you are fighting the axes, you're the axe tank, if you like, and you are struggling for resources, you're not sure if you've got enough to block the incoming attack. Maybe there's 5 axes. They all pop in a heavy attack at the same time, and you are low on stamina. Pop this. They won't knock you down. They'll hit basically nothing but air. You will take hardly any damage whatsoever. And although your healing and your mag recovery is not working while in misform, your stam recovery is. So make sure you have a potion running still all the time if you can help it. Or just get inside misform and just take your passive recovery for 4 seconds. And then you've got enough to block with. Or heavy attack on the return. It's really, really, really handy. Now, there are situations where you can use that and situations where you would not. But that is down to practice and down to your own personal use of it. It's very, very effective inside PvE. In the right places. Do not try and use it on the warrior though, because he will kill you. Now, next up is Invigorating Drain. This is actually a flex slot. So if you're not using Mistform, you may want to be using this. Mistform is normally when you're running around or trying to block certain mechanics that you normally would be able to, but you're out of juice. Or you just want to take a massive reduction to damage throughout. Maybe it's a big, big ad pull and you're trying to pull them all together and you're just running through the bunch and you want to put it on. That will help. But Invigorating Drain, if you're on a boss where there's not much going on, you've got a taunt on, the group's not taking much damage, you don't really need that many damage shields at the time, and there's not much else you can do apart from taunt and hold it still. You can use Invigorate and Drain. Invigorate and Drain will attach a beam to the target and basically feed off of it for 3 seconds, which can be animation cancelled, by the way. You can stop it. That doesn't mean it will still continue. You can stop the ability by holding block or swapping bars. But for the duration that it's running, every 1 second, you will gain 5 ultimate every second for 3 seconds, and heal for 17% of your missing health. If you have Major Mending first, that's different. It's 20% of your missing health. So this will keep you alive, it will do massive heals, and it will give you a stupid amount of ultimate regen, so you can pump out more Warhorns. Warhorn we'll come into in a bit, if you want to. That's a choice. Most of the time I use Elusive Mist, but some fights, especially stuff like Valarial, or even the Mage, if you haven't got too many axes going on, and sometimes even the Manticora in between heavy attacks, you can get away with this. Also, just bear in mind, by the way, Mistform doesn't block the throw in the air from the Manticora, from the popcorn, but it does mitigate the first hit. So that's actually quite handy. Anyway, that's a flex slot for vampire abilities. That's why we're stage 4 all the time, not only because the bonuses are awesome, but because these 2 skills are utilized within our build. Next up is Unstoppable Brutes. Now, this got altered. There are 2 morphs to this, and the choice is yours. But we'll tell you the difference between the 2 and then leave it with you. So, first of all, going to heavy armor. Starts off as Unstoppable. This particular one is called Unstoppable Brute. This will give you a physical and spell resistance of Major Water, Major Resolve, increasing both of them by 5280. That's a standard resistance buff. There are many different ways to get that. You can get it from Hardened Armor as well in the Draconic Power skill line if you prefer, but it will cost you magic instead. But this one comes with an extra bonus. It is a cheaper cost than the original morph. It does cost stamina instead of magicka, so you've got more magicka sustain to be able to pump out more igneous shields. And while this persists, while the buff is on, each piece of heavy armor worn, and we're wearing 7, decreases the cost of break free. So yes, if you've done the maths on that already, 35% reduction to break free cost. Obviously, there are diminished returns on top of the break free cost we have in our champion points, but this is a massive, massive bonus to break free. So if you ever need to, it doesn't cost you a bomb in stamina sustain. It's really, really helpful. Not only that, while you activate this, for the first 6 seconds, you are unable to be knocked down. You are immune to disabling effects and knockback. And this does reduce your speed. So for the 6 seconds it's active, you will get a 65% reduction to speed. So obviously we move slower. But you cannot be knocked over. And yes, this knockdown effect and mitigation from Mistform do stack together really, really nicely. So some bosses that would knock you over on Mistform, if they can't knock you over in this, you can stack the 2 together. Now, sometimes, depending on the fight, the block mitigation is better, so just press it and block. Other times, maybe you've got no resources left. You can stack them together, and it's really, really handy. Now, the other morph is broken as hell, ridiculously strong. The other morph has like a blue symbol instead, basically. It's almost identical, except you don't have a break free cost. It does cost a little bit more, but instead of having the knockdown effect and movement speed reduction, you have a knockdown effect and you can't physically move. You plant your feet so hard you can't move for 6 seconds. Now, in some mechanics, that might not be a problem, because it might be a stack and burn fight, you just have to stand still anyway. In other mechanics, you may want to have the knockdown immunity, but all of a sudden you might have to dodge roll out. That can be a problem because you can't dodge roll with that morph. So select your morph depending on what content you're in. But another bonus to the other morph, as well as being planting your feet on one spot, there is a bit of a bonus to that, and that is that you actually get a 35% reduction to incoming damage while blocking if you're wearing 7 pieces of armor. Yes, there are diminished returns there versus other stats that reduce block damage, because the mitigation cap for blocking is at 90%, but that is huge. So if you want one that will basically just make you an ultimate brick wall and nothing can get past you, of course you can use the other morph, but be aware you can't move while you have the first 6 seconds active. But this one, however, does still allow you to move. So if you need to get somewhere quickly but it's still active, just do a quick dodge roll and you'll be fine. You can still dodge roll while you've got this morph and it'll still cover a decent amount of ground. But if you use the other one, you can't. So again, the choice is yours. Maybe you want to switch out depending on the content. Maybe one requires heavy blocks and standing still, and the other requires a little bit of maneuverability. But either way, the skill itself is solid. Really, really nice. Now, Inner Rage, of course, is our back bar taunt. Now, this is in the Undaunted skill line. Where have you gone? Third ability to unlock. Starts off as Inner Fire, morph it to Inner Rage. It's a magical morph on purpose. Our front bar taunt is stamina, and our back bar one is magic. But this one has an extra bonus to it. This one taunts for 15 seconds from range, 28 meters obviously, but before it used to have a 35% chance to put a synergy on the target that other people can take, and then it does a big wind up and boom effect, big AoE burst of damage. That is no longer the case. The effect is still there, but instead of being a 35% chance to place it, or 38, I forget, I think it might have been 38, somewhere around there, now it's guaranteed. There's a synergy on any target that you taunt. Once the synergy's gone, you can apply it again. Obviously, there's a 20-second cooldown per person as to who can take it, but now you've got that extra damage in your group if people pay attention to synergies. It's really, really strong. Just note, by the way, they do have to be 15 meters away or further, I think, from the caster at the time. But if the tank is 7 meters in front of the boss and you're 7 to 8 meters behind the boss, there's your gap. It's really, really handy. Now, next up is Unrelenting Grip. This is your main kind of control ability, if you like, your CC maneuvering ability, in order to move other enemies to bend to your will. This isn't a on the spot hold everything still ability that's coming up next. This is the one to pull them to you. This basically, if you target the enemy, you will chain them to your feet. They'll have a immunity to cooldown then for CC for a short period of time for stuns and chains and such, but they'll be now with you. If they can't be chained, if they are immune, or if they are in an immunity phase, you will get 100% of the cost back. So you can kind of spam it for a tiny bit of damage if you really wanted to, but that's not what we're using it for. You use it to pull stuff to your feet, but if you use it, whether it can be pulled or not, you will get a speed buff. So that's actually really helpful to use as a tactic inside some content. Cloud Rest, for example, Zamaja travels from one side of the room to the other. It's really stressful on stamina sustain if you've got a sprint. Obviously, we're going to sprint because we have to get there quick. But if you have a target in range and you try to chain it, whether it can be pulled or not, you do get a speed buff so you can get there quicker. Now, that can be utilized in lots of different areas of content, but just be aware of that little tip there so you can take advantage of it. Now, this is Unrelenting Grip, again, from the 4th ability in the Ardent Flame skill line, and it starts off as Fiery Grip. Morph it to Unrelenting, so that's the one that pulls them to you, not the other way around. Now, what do you do once they're chained to your feet? Pin them up. This is from the Draconic Power skill line. 2nd ability to unlock. Starts off as Dark Talons. Morph it to Choking Talons. Now, this is an area of effect root. This will actually immobilize 6 targets maximum, if they can be immobilized, for 4 seconds. There is a synergy attached to this as well, which other players can take to do loads of area of effect damage if they feel like picking it up, which they should. But they're immobilized for 4 seconds, and they are affected with minor maim, reducing their damage done to everyone by 15% for 10 whole seconds. It used to be 7, but it's now 10. Now, just bear in mind, this roots 6 enemies. But minor maim will be applied with no cap. So if you're in the middle of 15 enemies and you fire this, you'll only root 6 of them, but you will minor maim all of them. Even if it's a boss and it can't be rooted, this will still apply. Really, really handy. Chain them in, pin them up, make sure they're taunted, hold them still. Now, Aggressive Warhorn is in the Assault skill line. You will need to go to PvP to get this. Now, this, when you fire it, will grant all of your allies in the group, so if we're talking trial group, we'll say 12 people, this will grant everyone 10% increased max magic and 10% increased max stam for 30 seconds, which is nuts. Massive resource increase, everybody gets more damage or more heals or whatever. You included. But all of your allies and yourself gain minor force as well, increasing all critical damage done by 15% for 10 seconds. It only lasts for 10 seconds on the buff side, but it does give the flat stats for 30. So what you want to do in your group, if you can help it, is stagger these every 10 seconds if you've got multiples, or just use it as and when you can if you've only got the one. Now, of course, again, if you're in trouble, use Shield Discipline. Make sure you use this if you don't have enough for that and you're about to die. But for the rest of the time, if you can help it, use Warhorn as much as you can. Now, the flex slot for this is actually Magma Shell. If you don't have Warhorn, or you're in a situation where you think you're probably never going to get to fire it anyway, but your group needs some extra protection, you can put on Magma Shell, which comes from the Earth and Heart skill line. Now, this is obviously the ultimate. You only need to be level 12 to unlock it. Starts off as Magma Armor, morph it to Magma Shell. This lasts 12 seconds. You'll take no more than 3% of your maximum health and damage every time you get hit. It will do flame AoE damage, but it's minimal, so it's not that important. But the thing that is important here is when activated, nearby allies will gain a damage shield equivalent to 100% of their max health for 10 seconds. Unless, of course, they take damage and it runs out. So, to go alongside of this, you've got a 30% of their max health damage shield here, another damage shield here, and you've got this, which is equivalent of 100% of their health here. You can protect your group really, really well if need be. But if that is not necessary and you don't need it, Warhorn all the way. Now I'm going to get into passives, and this might start to make a little bit more sense, but we are going to go into the gear shortly after, and then everything will start slotting together. And you'll understand why we have stuff like this active all the time to give us heal and receive bonuses and such. It's not just for the healers that we receive from healers, it's our own stuff too. So, first of all, Ardent Flame. You might not need all of these. This increases your burning and poison status effect damage over time. So, if you damage something with fire, which we might do with our chains, you can have a burning status effect applied, which is a damage over time effect of burning, or fire, which lasts a few seconds and does a decent amount of damage for your DPS, but not so much for us. That's enhanced because we're a DK. Poison, any poison damage you do will also have a chance to proc a poison status effect, just like everybody else does, but for us, it will be stronger. Now, that doesn't make any sense here, does it? Because we have no poison abilities. Yes, we do. When we get to the gear, I'm going to explain that in detail, but just bear in mind these passive bonuses for this at the moment. If you apply a burner status effect, you restore 500 magicka every 2 seconds that burner status effect is active or reapplies itself. So our magic sustain is covered. Also, when you apply poison damage, if you apply a poison status effect, once every 2 seconds you can restore 500 stamina. That is extremely important to note. The stamina. We will be doing poison damage. That is coming up. Stay with me. When you deal direct damage for an Ardent Flame ability, you reduce the enemy's movement speed. Obviously, our chains will reduce their movement speed. That means when we chain them in, if they try and run off and we haven't clawed them up yet, they're a bit slower. That's really helpful. Increases your damage of Fire Breath, Searing Strike, and Dragonknight standard abilities by 10% and in duration by 2 seconds. That's not really important for us, unless, of course, you are using the Flame version of this, which is Engulf in Flames, to apply 10% extra fire damage to the target from your group. If you do slot that particular skill, of course, this will benefit you, because the duration is up. But if not, don't worry about it, you don't need it. This increases the damage of your air effect flame abilities. We're not using any, but it also does decrease the stamina cost of our poison abilities. We are doing poison damage, but we're not physically using an ability. So this, again, doesn't need to be bought, but if you are using Engulf in Flames, of course you can to just get the tiny increase of the area of effect damage of the skill, even though we're not set for DPS. Draconic Power is important. Obviously, this is your resistance buff, by the way. I didn't mean to go over it earlier. You can have Volatile Armor or Hardened Armor, whichever suits you. It's exactly the same resistance buff as Immovable or Unstoppable, but of course it costs Magicka instead of Stamina, and you don't have to stand on the spot or slow down. The choice is yours, really, but I prefer this one because of the knockdown effect, or no knockdown effect, as it were. This increases the amount of damage you can block. Definitely get that. Makes sense. While a Draconic Power ability is active, your healing received is increased by 12%. Now, this here gives us Minor Vitality, increasing our healing received by 8%. This gives us a further 12%. Yes, they stack. Increases your health recovery by 5% for each Draconic Power ability slotted. We do have one on the front and one on the back. It's a 5% increase to basically nothing because we are a vampire, but it will count, so you may as well get this. Plus, above all, this increases the range of your instant melee attacks by 2 meters. You'll notice our taunt is 7 meters, not 5, so we don't have to stand in the boss's face, right in his face, to be able to taunt. We can reach from quite a decent distance. Increases your spell resistance by 3300. This is why our spell resistance is higher than our physical, because flat out the Dragonknight has really good spell resistances, so make sure you get that. Earth and Heart, of course, is incredibly important. This increases the duration of your Earth and Heart abilities. As you may know, we're using an Earth and Heart ability here. We've got an 8-second damage shield with a 3-second Major Mending. That 8-second damage shield would be less if we didn't have this passive, so that does help. Also, if you're using Magma Shell, this has a 12-second duration instead of less. When you cast an ultimate ability, you restore 52 health, 46 magicka, and 46 stamina for each point of the ultimate's cost. This is very important to know. Remember when I said this is your oh shit button? If you're really low on resources, you haven't got enough ultimate to fire your back bar one, you use this. Not only will it block you, but you'll get resources back for every ultimate point cost. With that in mind, however, if you do have a lot of ultimate, you do want to use this because it boosts your group, and at the same time, the ultimate is almost double the cost, which means you will actually get a lot more resources back. The more expensive the ultimate, the more resources you get back for firing it. Take advantage of this as much as possible. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you and your group gain minor brutality for 20 seconds, increasing your weapon damage by 10%. Your group gets 10% weapon damage for you spamming this ability. You only have to use it once every 20 seconds, but we're using it a lot more than that. We actually buff our group 100% of the time, easily. Not to mention, of course, if you use this at least once every 6 seconds or more, you will gain 3 ultimate for every time that you do. We are casting it easily once every 6 seconds for the most part. 3 ultimate. Ulti-gen is awesome. Most can't manage that because they are so focused on maximum magicka rather than recovery that they don't use this anywhere near as much as we do. And obviously its effectiveness is down because of the reduction to strength. But for us, because we've got high magic recovery and not a high magic pool that eventually runs out and we have to spam another ability to make it weak again, we can actually spam this within reason to keep buff time up, to keep protection up, to keep Major Mending up, and of course to keep giving us ultimate. It's really, really helpful. When you cast an Earth and Heart ability, you restore 990 stamina. Again, we don't just use this once every 30 seconds or so, or once even every 10. We can use this as much as we like, especially while we're getting resources back from our potions. We can basically just keep our stamina bar up forever. So damage shield with stamina, damage shield with magic, damage shield with stamina, damage shield with magic. We can actually keep up our stamina by using a magic ability, and it doesn't run out very quickly, and when it does run out, we just reapply it again. Depending on what you're up against, depends on how often you have to press it, but it's really, really helpful. You can balance your scales of your resources. Now, if you're using the recovery food, the magic recovery food, this can be used a lot more often and a lot faster. So you can just keep this on people all the time, especially during the execute phases where it's heavy incoming damage. But you can do that yourselves. You can figure out which one of the two foods you prefer. It's really, really nice. And of course, when we get to our sets, you'll see how we can get even more resources back as long as we're paying attention to mechanics. One-handed shield. You want to get every single one of these. This reduces the stamina cost of your one-handed shield abilities by 15% and reduces the cost of blocking by 36%. Block cost is down, cost of abilities is down. Brilliant. Increases your weapon damage by 5% of the amount of damage you can block by 20% as well. So the weapon damage increase for the abilities is not that important, but the damage you can block is, so you might want to get this. Improves your standard bash attacks, which we're not that bothered about. We will bash, obviously, but bash attacks gain an additional 500 weapon and spell damage and cost 40% less. The 40% less is important. We will be interrupting stuff. Increases the amount of damage you can block from projectiles and ranged attacks. This is very important. Not to mention, of course, this saves us from projectiles. So we have protection in the form of actual absorption of direct projectiles, and then at the same time, we can block more if we don't have the damage shield up. This increases your movement speed while blocking. While you're blocking, you're quite slow, but we move a little bit faster than we normally would. Very handy. Now, we are using just heavy armor to take full advantage of our resistance passives, our heavy armor passives, and of course this particular skill to make it as effective as we can. But you want to get every single one of these. This will increase your physical and spell resistance per piece worn. This will give you constitution, which increases your health recovery per piece worn. But above all, when you are hit, when you take damage, you gain 108 magicka and stamina for each piece of armor worn once every 4 seconds. Every 4 seconds, we actually get 757 magic and stamina back. That magic does help alongside of our mag recovery, and the stamina does help alongside our stamina recovery if our shield is down, but above all, of course, alongside Ignis shields every time we cast it, because we get 990 back. So 990 there, plus we've got 757 there. So we can get a lot of stamina back quite quickly, as long as we're in combat taking damage. This increases your maximum health by 2% for each piece worn. As you can see, we've got a whopping 14% increase to our max health, which does benefit us because this skill here, and this, and this, and this. 4 skills on our front bar all benefit from maximum health increase. So they're very, very handy. Oh, we missed a passive there. This one increases your magicka and stamina return from your heavy attacks. Also, bear in mind, off-balance targets, if you heavy attack them, you get double resources. So it's very easy for us to sustain. Make sure you heavy attack if you're doing nothing else and the boss isn't punching you in the face with a heavy attack back. If there's a window of opportunity between heavies, heavy the boss. Fight it. Punch him. Hit him. Get your stand back. When 5 or more pieces of armor are worn, you are also granted an 8% healing received bonus. So 8% healing received there, 8% healing received here, plus the 12% healing received from the Draconic Power passives. We have very high healing received. Our heals that we do or take from others are massive. Now, of course, we are a stage 4 vampire, so you want this one here, which increases your mag and stam recovery. That will obviously help us utilize our abilities more. And, of course, Undeaf. Reduces the damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health. Again, another health-based stat. Health is very, very effective on this particular build, and you can see why. If you go below 50%, you take up to 33% less, depending on how low you are, which means basically under 50%, you're more tanky than you were in the first place. This adds to your sustain as well, because this is based off of max health, this heal here. So we can dip quite low to take full advantage of this ability. Based on the fact we've got over 50k health, it's going to take us quite a long time to get there, so we don't have to overburn this skill. Also, that means we can go safely lower than 50% health because we have the damage mitigation bonus here. If you had a very, very low health pool, you would get to 50% a lot quicker. you would have to use this a lot more and it would be a lot less effective. So that is the reason for the high health. Not just for the sake of us being hit, because we need to be hit, but also these passives do contribute towards it. Fighters Guild, you can of course get Ring of Preservation if you want to. This will have to be a flex slot of your own choice. You can protect your group with minor protection, giving them an 8% damage mitigation of course, but that's not why we're really in the Fighters Guild passives. We're here because of this. You generate 9 ultimate when you kill an undead Daedra or werewolf. You may kill stuff. When you see the gear, you'll be hopefully quite surprised at how it works, but you can actually kill stuff by accident. Or the boss might have 10k health left, everybody's dead, and you've got to stab it. But anyway, if you kill undead Daedra or werewolf, you'll get 9 ultimate back. So as long as you get the kill and blow, you will get it. Sometimes it happens. Take this passive just in case. Undaunted is incredibly important, of course. If you take a synergy, and you will, you get 4% of every single resource back. Take all the synergies you can see. And this increases your max health, stamina, and magicka based on the maximum amount of different types of armor we're wearing. So we're wearing just one type of armor. You could wear medium and light as well, but you'll lose heavy passives. You'll lose resistance. You'll lose constitution passive. You lose health. Yes, you gain the health back with the 2 pieces being different on this passive, but you'll end up getting 4% of maximum resources that 1, we don't need, and 2, will basically diminish our effectiveness for a lot of our skills and bonuses. You don't want to do that. So 2% on top of this low 10.3k max magicka is going to not scratch us at all. The health will be the same. The stamina will get an increase, but we don't need it. And our resistances will take a hit, and so will our resource return. So deliberately go with 7 pieces of heavy. For that, we'll take the 2% across the board, and thank you very much. Now, you can, of course, use Guard if you want to give someone a bit of protection and give them minor force at the same time, increasing their crit damage. Perhaps they haven't got a beast trap or something to that effect. You can, of course, use this, but be very, very careful with it because you are going to have to make sure you fight for your stam sustain, and you are going to have to double bar it. So if you do use this, you might want to swap it for Absorb Missile and Mistform in some situations. Maybe you can get away with it, but again, you will have to double bar it because if you swap it, it'll fall off. And if they go without 15 meters of you, or away from 15 meters of you, that will fall off as well. But just a little tip, if you do end up using Guard for any reason whatsoever, you can, of course, take advantage of Magicka Aid, and this will give you a 10% increased Magicka recovery bonus while this is on your bar. Which means, of course, we are struggling for stamina while we're using this, but we can use Ignis Shields more often because our recovery is up, which will give us stam back. So they trade off each other. That's a flex slot. You don't have to use that. Depends on your group. We are, of course, an Imperial. Imperial has a 2k health bonus, highest one in the game. 2k stam bonus, again, highest one in the game alongside a couple other races. And reduction to cost of all your abilities. Every single ability we have, including our ultimates, are reduced by 3% in total cost. And when you deal direct damage, you heal yourself for 379 and restore 333 magicka and stamina once every 5 seconds. This stacks with our Constitution passive as well. So if we say for argument's sake this was 4 seconds, not 5, and you got the Constitution passive at the same time as this, you can get basically 1,000 recovery across the board for 1 second, once every 4 to 5 seconds. It's really, really nice. They don't actually line up that accurately, but you can see where we can go with it. It actually does work really, really nicely. We've got really good resource gain, and we've got Ignis Shield for more stamina return, and we've got high magic recovery, so we can use Ignis more often to give us a stand back, and we've got some sets that are going to contribute as well. It's really, really nice. You can be whatever race you want. You can be a Nord if you want, but you have to mess with your resistances because we'll be too high. You can be an Argonian if you want for the potion passive. You can be an Orc. Orc works really, really well, especially using weapon abilities, which will actually heal you. But personally, after lots and lots of testing, although the Orc was the original build way back when, for the last 2 updates, ever since the race changes, this has been an Imperial, and it's really, really solid. The Red Diamond passive is really nuts. Finally, the most important passive in the game, in my opinion, is Medicinal Use. You've heard me say it 100 times already if you've been there before. 30% increase to your potion durations. Now, we are going to get into the gear, and this is where this passive here, this massive passive, that was not meant to rhyme, but it did, will give us stamina back every 2 seconds if we apply poison status effects. How is that going to work? We are using Leeching Plate. And I don't care how many people say, oh my god, it's a good set now. No, it's always been good, but it did get buffed the last update. And this is nuts. We've got a Defending Sword on the front bar and a Defending One-Hander on the back bar. Choice of weapon types is actually yours. It doesn't make a difference. It just helps if you've got 2 different visuals. You can get the sword from Lord Warden in Imperial City Prison, and you can get a shield from the quest as well, which does come in reinforced, but you will have to find yourself another shield. Or you can jiggle with the other set and try and do one sword and shield of each set or whatever. But basically you need 5 pieces. So sword and board and jewelry, or sword and board and some armor, or just full armor and something else. It's up to you. Whatever order you want to put them in, as long as you've got 5 pieces. This will give you a max health bonus. It'll give you a heal and receive bonus, which stacks with all the other ones we have. Another max health bonus. And when you take damage, you have a 20% chance to summon a cloud of leech and poison under the assailant. The one that does the damage to you, by the way. The cloud deals 1, 3, 6, 8 poison damage every 1 second for 5 seconds and heals you for 100% of the damage caused. And this can happen once every 5 seconds. So technically, if your dice roll is in your favor, you can have this up 100% of the time. It's an area of effect poison cloud that heals for all damage done. This poison damage has a very high chance to proc poison status effects. And while that poison status effect is active, every 2 seconds you will get 500 stamina back. It is absolutely ridiculous. If you're in a crowd of enemies, one of them is going to get the status effect. You're going to get 1,000 recovery or 1,000 stamina back over 4 seconds. On top of your constitution passive, on top of your red diamond, on top of your other set, which we're going to get to in a minute, and on top of your potion and heavy attacks. This is absolutely mental. We will show you a demonstration, the old school one, where we run through Hellrite all the way to the door and just block everything. You'll see what I mean. Your block cost reduction is already down with our traits, but we get stamina back at such a accelerated rate now because this passive was changed that this is actually really, really solid. So, trait-wise, you want to go defending on the main hand, and you want to go Nirnhoned on the shield if you can help it. Reinforced is fine, but Nirnhoned is a little bit stronger. Backbar, same again, defending and Nirnhoned on the one hand and shield. We are using poisons. This poison, if you use a light attack, a heavy attack, or a weapon ability, so taunt, or you actually hit with your light attacks or heavy attacks, or you apply any form of physical interaction with a weapon ability, so even heroic slash or something like that, you can proc your poison. This will give us 238 stamina back every second for 6 seconds with a 10-second cooldown. So again, more stam recovery. We're blocking as a tank a lot of the time, and we have huge recovery based on this setup. Now, the other set, so 5 pieces of leech, first of all. The other set is, I cannot pronounce this at all. Yolnakrin? I don't know. However you say it. YOLO. That's what we're going to call it. Now, you don't have to have the perfected version of this. You'll only lose 1k from the 5-piece bonus. That's all you'll lose, or 1.2k even from the health. You can use the normal version. You'll still get the stam bonus. You'll still get the health bonus to start with. You just lose the 5-piece one. The actual final 5-piece bonus is the same on the perfected or the normal version, so it makes no difference. So you can go into normal Sunspire if you want, or you can go into Vet Sunspire. The good thing about Sunspire is the perfected stuff drops from the bosses without the need to do hard mode. And there's a lot of pugs doing that at the moment because they're quite simple fights for the most part. Stack, burn, kill the ads, stack, burn, kill the ads. If you're not comfortable with that, however, go on normal. You'll get that stuff in no time. People are literally blitzing it all day long. Look out in local chat for hosted groups, or host one yourself. Get stuck in, get your 5-piece set of armor, and get out again. Now, what you want to do is obviously have this on the body or jewelry or weapons, whichever suits you, but make sure you've got 5 pieces alongside leeching. This will give you a health bonus. It'll give you a 5% reduction to damage. It'll give you a stam bonus, a health bonus, and then when you taunt an enemy, which we do because we're the tank, you give yourself and 11 other group members minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 129, and this lasts for 8 seconds. Or sorry, it can happen every 8 seconds. So basically, you just stab something with a taunt to get aggro, which is your job, and your set, which you do your job with, buffs your group. Can't get any simpler than that. Not only that, because it's got an 8-second cooldown and a 15-second uptime, this can last forever. As long as you keep a taunt on that target every 15 seconds, which is a duration for a taunt, this will never, ever, ever run out. If it falls off, you didn't do your job properly, or you died. Also, this is the only way to get minor courage in the game. So for those of you wanting buff sets for tanks and shouting about support and utility and all that crap, this is a tank set that offers us mitigation, stam resource, health resource for survivability, of course, and it gives a buff to your group that nobody else can give them. This is very, very strong. Now, of course, because it's a minor courage, it does stack with major courage, which is nice. But if you don't want to use that set, perhaps someone else is already using it. Maybe the off tank is using it while he's holding on to ads. What you can use instead is you can use Gallonways, which is health, minor Aegis again, so protection, healing received, which is bigger heals, health again, and after successfully blocking, you have a 50% chance to grant Empower to 3 different allies within 15 meters, increasing their damage of their next light attack by 40%. And this can happen once every 1 second. Some classes have Empower already, so those ones need to be out of the way. Anything else that's up close, perhaps if you've got Dragonknights, for example, you've got, I don't know, 3 Stam DKs up front, and you are blocking attacks. They are all getting buffed light attacks. It's a very good set, especially if you're getting hit with a lot of stuff that you have to block all the time. But it's a different effect to this one. This one buffs everyone with a flat bonus. This one buffs 3 people at a time with increased light attack damage. And if you've played long enough as a DPS, you will know that light attack damage is one of the highest things on your overall damage output. So this is very, very nice indeed. Either way, you've got 2 potential buff sets as a tank. You can actually wear both together if you wanted. You could wear this one for the buff with the taunt, and you can wear this one for the blocking and then pumping out extra damage bonus. But just bear in mind, of course, minor Aegis doesn't stack, so you'll be having a bum trait there. And of course, you won't have Leech, and so your survivability will go down. But flipping these out, it's entirely up to you. One more option as well, just because it's called the Immortal Warrior, you can, of course, put on Immortal Yokida. Healing received, health bonus, healing received again, so massive heals. And when your health drops below 35%, you gain major protection, so you've got your own personal Nova. And this can happen once every 35 seconds. You don't have to use this. It's not really part of the build, but for shits and giggles, if you want to put it on, it is actually really, really strong. Makes you a really stubborn tank when your Undeath passive kicks in, and then you get major protection. Now, finally, we are using Stonekeepers. This gives us stamina, magic, and health to start with. Kind of like a tri-stat glyph. Small amount, but it helps. But when you block an attack, you gain an energy charge which stacks up. Once you get to 6, so 6 successful blocks, you'll release it, you'll gain 5,350 stamina and magicka and 6,099 health all at once. It's like an Argonian potion passive. And after it has popped, after 14 seconds, you can do it again. Now, we're not built to permablock, but we borderline can inside ad pools and situations. This is ridiculous. As long as you're blocking, while this cooldown is gone, after 6 blocks, you will get all that resource back. So, do you use a tripod, or do you wait for this to kick in? Or do you wait for it to kick in when you're really, really low, and then use both? And then pop an ultimate. You see where I'm going with this. Resource gain is disgusting. So you want to use the helmet and shoulders of that. Now, trait-wise and glyphs and such, you want to put health on everything. If you want some more stamina, of course, you can put stam on the shield and the armor. It's up to you. But poison on the front, health glyph on the shields, and the back bar glyph is entirely up to you. I'll put a magic damage and health restore. It really doesn't matter at the moment. One-handed weapons give a much, much lesser effect of glyphs anyway, so whatever you fancy. Even a damage shield if you want. Helmet is reinforced. Chest is reinforced. Everything else is sturdy. Now, if you want to plug your resist a little bit and mess with your CPs, you can, of course, have one more piece in reinforced, so go for the shoulder, but you really don't need to. You're going to hit cap anyway, or almost cap, so it's not necessary, but it's not the end of the world if you choose to do so. In the meantime, the jewelry is on healthy on everything, with mag recovery on all of them. Just bear in mind, of course, you see these heal and receive bonuses that we've stacked up throughout our skills and passives and gear. That applies to the heals from leeching. And that's going to make even more sense because we're now going to go into the champion points and explain that too. We'll go with the red ones first. These can change depending on content, but I'm really, really comfy with these in pretty much everything. 24% increase reduction to damage to direct attacks. With a tank, we're going to get hit with all that stuff. Get that up there quick as possible. 49 and 49 into every other type of damage. So flat, poison, disease, physical, magic, shock, fire, every type of damage, 11% reduction to all. 19% reduction to damage over time. If you break free, your next stamina ability will cost 80% less. Now, bear in mind we're using an ability that reduces the cost of break free. So that's already cheap. When we do so, our next stam ability is cheaper by 80%. So when you do break free, pop a bone shield, it'll cost you nearly nothing. Really, really cheap. 19 points in a quick recovery to give us more healing received. And 21 points into heavy armor focus to get our physical resistance up to close to our spell resistance, because as a DK we have 3300 more spell resistance than we do physical. So this kind of closes the gap a little bit without going into too many lost points in everywhere else that we're really, really in need of. Of course, we have the field physician passive having 10 points in this tree, which means if you resurrect someone, and believe me, in this setup you're going to be, you will be able to protect yourself for an extra 15% reduction to damage while doing so. So pop a block ulti and then try and res someone, you won't die. And also in Fusion, because we've got 30 points in this tree, if you res someone, they'll get a little bit of mag recovery for 8 seconds when they get back up. It's really, really helpful. 56 points into reduction to break free cost. We have a massive reduction to break free cost during our resistance uptime because of our immovable skill, but this also contributes. 64 points into tenacity, which means if we heavy attack, we get 13% increase back from our heavies. Don't forget we're using heavy armor, which also contributes to that as well. We are using 14% of our points, 75 in fact, in Arcanus to give us more mag recovery. Remember, our skills are based off of their strength from their usage, and they are scaling off of max health. They are not scaled off of max magicka, so we don't need a big pool. We just need to be able to use it more often. 9 points into Tumbling to reduce the cost of dodge roll by 4%. It's not massive, but it will help. And 66 points into Shadow Ward to reduce the cost of blocking by 22%. That will stack with our Sturdy as well. There are diminished returns, but we're in a really, really comfy place with that. Also, because we've got 75 points in here, if we loot stuff from chests, we have higher quality gear, which is nice. 75 points into Bless, which increases our healing done. That includes our Missile Absorb. That includes our Invigorating Drain if we're using it. It also includes our Dragon Blood. Even if we're using Igneous Shields, this will still contribute on top of it. And this also counts towards our Leeching procs. The damage done presents us with a heal. The healing done is improved. And yes, Igneous Shields does boost that from Leeching as well. Elfborn, now this is very important. We've got an 18% increase to crit damage and crit healing with magic abilities. Now, our Dragon Blood can crit. We've got very low spell crit, but we can crit it. So why have we got so many points in here if it's going to be so rare? Well, because we have the Vengeance passive. When you block 3 spells within 10 seconds of each other, so over 30 seconds, you just have to block 3, one every 10 seconds, your next magic ability used within the 5 seconds of your 3 stacks happening will always be a critical strike. Now it says next ability. It doesn't say next damage ability. So, if you manage to stack up 3 of these, it'll kind of look like this screen actually, but just in a tiny, tiny buff window. If you've got 3 stacks on it, hit an Igneous Shield, that won't consume it. It doesn't have any stat effects. It just gives you Major Mending and a shield. It doesn't have any damage output. It doesn't have any heals. It won't consume this buff. Hit your Igneous Shields first to give you Major Mending, then pop your Dragon Blood. It will be a guaranteed crit, and this will give it an 18% increase. Plus the 75 points in here, increasing the healing done, plus the Major Mending. Guaranteed crit heal. You will go from 0 health to full. Very, very strong indeed. There is a video on my channel called Vengeance OP. Actually, it's quite old, but I do demonstrate how to utilize this. Check that out if you've got some time. No points in here. We're not using anything. We don't need it. 72 into Thaumaturge, 75 into Mighty. Why are we doing that? We're a tank. We don't need damage, right? False. This increases the strength of the Leeching proc. It's damage over time, so does this. When you put points into Master at Arms, the set itself does show higher stats, but it's false. When it actually applies, it is spec'd off of this damage here and this damage here, which is a massive, massive bonus to us. Because instead of putting points in this tree, which would be boring, we can put points in this tree, which gives us 2 major bonuses. It gives us the Exploiter passive, so if anything is off balance, we will have a 10% increase to damage. Meaning that the heals from Leeching will be even higher because the damage will be even higher because our damage just went up. Also, if you go very low health, we know that we've got such a high health bar, we can safely go low and get a big heal from Dragon Blood. We can also go safely low health because we have our Undeath passive, but also, if we do deliberately on occasions go really, really low health, we will grant ourselves Major Heroism, giving us 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 8 seconds, and this can occur once every 20. So if we do dip, our ulti regen goes up. Now, this is obviously been done several times before on my build videos, but we're going to do the same trick as we did before. We are going to demonstrate the effectiveness of these sets combined. So you're going to see Leech and proc, and you're going to basically see me try not to die. And also I'm going to run the right direction because I nearly ran out of the friggin' trial. So there's my rubbish horse. He's amazing. Don't judge him. Doo-doo. Now, a move will obviously makes you move really slow, but gives you a resistance buff. So don't waste that when you first go in. It's useless. So just misform and leg it. Use your resistance buff when you're actually in a fight, not on the way in. Unless, of course, you're using hardened armor, which is also fine. So we're going to pull everything. You are never, ever, ever, ever going to need to do this. This is absolute overkill, but this just gives you a quick demonstration as to what to expect. Buffs on. Now, we're not perma blockers, but we'll hold block. Now, you saw my stamina just go up then, not just from Ignis Shields, but because our Stonekeeper helmet, you'll see a little Skeeverton in the buff window. That's what you're looking for. Heavy attack to get some stuff back if you need to. Skeeverton has got 2 procs. 3, then he said 2 pricks. 1 more, there goes your resources. 14 seconds, we can do it again. You can see Leech and firing all over the place. That's what the damage is. Every single tick of that is healing me. Ignis Shields makes it stronger. If you're in trouble, pop immovable. Can't be knocked down, you can get in a sneaky heavy attack. And you're safe. Also, Mist Form. You can't heal while it's active, but they'll hit nothing but air. Really handy. They cannot knock you over on the first 6 seconds of immovable. Keep your buffs up all the time. Dragon Blood and your resistance buff needs to be up. Block ulti, they can't do a damn thing. Look at my resources. I don't have a healer. I don't have synergies. So for all those tanks out there crying about synergy requirements, heavy attack when you need to. Keep an eye on your buffs. Keep an eye on your timers. Break free cost me nearly nothing there. Went to go and put my resistance buff on. Again, I've got a lot of targets to keep an eye on. You're never going to have to do this. So, hopefully it helped. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build. If you have not used it before, you are in for a surprise. And if you have used it before, you're going to love it because it's still getting stronger every patch anyway. So, first of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. And if you are not subscribing already, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside of the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website XynodeGaming.com, where all the written guides are. There are many, many more builds to come. I'm pumping them out really, really fast for this update because I fell behind a bit last time. But don't forget also, I do live stream on Twitch every night from 10 PM UK time, unless I say otherwise on Twitter. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.